running through my head naturally. It must be love or some book you read. Be conscious, curious, creacious, confectious, and mean what you said. Free your mind, free your mind, free your mind, it's time. Free your mind, free your mind, free your mind, it's time. Hi, this is Munson with another video journal. I'm just sitting around the shop. It's Tuesday, the day after Labor Day. I kind of took yesterday off from everything and had a wonderful day at home with my beautiful girl and her kids, and we had a wonderful time. Me and Kira and Caleb and Bonnie. So, but anyway, I thought today I might talk a little bit about what I do when I'm trying to pick out a lesson as a random thing. But for the most part, what most of the guitar lessons that I post on YouTube are is something I would call chord reductions. Because a lot of times when you've got a piece of music, whatever it happens to be, you have a bass line of some sort going on, and it might get elaborated. And then there might be an actual guitar part, whatever it happens to be. Isn't necessarily all just like big chords, but if you're playing something solo, or if you're working more solo arrangements, then the idea is you want to take all of that plus the drums, plus the lead guitar, plus the keyboard, plus the vocals, like everything all together, and somehow miraculously turn those 5 or 6 instrument parts into one guitar part that works for yourself to accompany yourself to a tune, which I would call a chord reduction. Because a lot of times you can take a complex something and turn it into a simpler something. The flip side of that is you can turn something simple into something very, very complex too, just based upon what your level is with the guitar or whatever instrument you happen to be playing. I mean, just whatever you're doing, you can make it, you can embellish things, you can add more notes to something, you can have a really simple melody line that suddenly becomes a more complex melody line. Whatever it happens to be. So there's all kinds of ways to kind of embellish things, and so a lot of times what I'm doing is I'm listening with my ear, right? This is slightly, I guess, a conversation about picking things out by ear. A lot of times you want to listen for the bass note. The bass 9 times out of 10 will give away the chord in a wonderful, wonderful way. So if randomly you're picking out notes on the E string, if you're listening to a tune, you're like, oh man, I really want to play this song, and I don't know where to play it. So you'd be going to the E string trying to pick out what bass notes might be happening through the song. And that would at least give you some kind of sense of like, okay, well the chord's moving from there to there to there, wherever it happens to be. And then the side of that is then you'd be trying to figure out whether things are happy on that bass note, like a big G chord for instance, or whether it be sad, like a big G minor chord, kind of thing. So you might have a bass line that you're working off of, try and pick out the tune, and then try and figure out whether things are happy or sad. So that's the basic idea of how I pick out a lot of these tunes. Individually, if you're picking out intro licks, you're going for individual notes, you're trying to relate it to a scale a lot of times, or if you're lucky it all works in one scale, and then you're trying to kind of figure out what the chord progression might be based on bass notes and whether things are happy and sad. So that's basically how you pick out tunes by ear. Is you would figure out whatever the bass line is and go, oh, okay, well everything sounds really happy, or it's things are so sad. Maybe I got some minor craziness going on. So that's a lot of what I do. But then once you figure out what key something's really in, then you try and think about, well, if it was in a different key, maybe it'd be easier to play. And so then that's where the capo comes in, where you start grabbing this guy and throwing him in different places. on the guitar to try and figure out the easiest way out. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use the capo when you're playing. You can completely play a lot of these lessons that I post that have capos to play with recordings. Sometimes the song actually works better for my voice and root position, just working open string. So even though Wagon Wheel I taught as a capo 2nd fret randomly in the key of G, it doesn't mean that you can't just really play it in the key of G, even though you're supposed to put the capo on 2nd fret. You know, I get that comment sometimes, and that's kind of a thing. Is when you're playing, you know, you really should try and take whatever it is that you're doing and then work it for whatever your skill level is, so that you feel comfortable doing what you're doing, so you can be more expressive with it, because it's really all about being expressive and trying to feel what it is that you're doing with the instrument. So if you can even work it on a level down from yourself and be more expressive, you know, whatever that happens to be for yourself. You know, sometimes that can be a very cool thing to do, is kind of scale things down, and that can make it a lot easier to kind of work things around it. Now, it's always cool to try and match the recording exactly, but a lot of times I think for myself, you know, you're going to end up in some kind of situation with just you and a guitar, or you and your instrument, and that's it. So, you know, it can be a really cool thing, or a cool way to kind of figure out how you might do it in the easiest way possible, so that when you're sitting around the campfire, you know, hanging out with people who want to sit around and sing and participate and have a great old time, sitting around the circle, wherever it happens to be, you know, that you can, you know, participate in that and kind of have, you know, get to feeling it, you know, because that's what it's really all about, is having a good time and playing with your instrument. So anyway, I think that's the main thing, is just find an easy way for you to do it, whatever it happens to be. Now, sometimes it really is cool to match the recording note for note, and that there's a lot to be said for that, especially if you're working in a band situation. You've got a bass player, you've got a keyboard player, a drummer that you're working with, you've got an ensemble. You know, that can be very cool to kind of work it, you know, exactly what your part is. But I think the majority of people, I think, watching lessons on YouTube, I would imagine, are people who are really trying to just play it for themselves, you know, as like a solo arrangement thing. So anyway, so that's kind of where my lessons are coming from, in a way, is trying to find the easiest way out in the key, picking out things by ear, whatever the bass line happens to be, thinking happy and sad, trying to pick out melodies individually. You know, when there's a cool lead lick, I definitely try and include it with the tab, if I can pick it out, because all these songs I pick out by ear. So it definitely gets to some point and you're like, this is ridiculously evil and I need real tab, you know, and at that point, I don't worry about that for a YouTube lesson, because if you're really interested in that, you should go and pay for the tab book and just, you know, sit down with it, and if you're on that level. And it is weird, you get some posts, sometimes I get posts about, you know, post an advanced lesson for this, and I don't really believe in advanced lessons. I think if you're on an advanced level, you don't need my lessons, is the thing. So that's why I try and make my lessons kind of geared for beginner to advanced, and how you would get to the next level from where you might be as a beginner. And I think that really is what it's all about for me, is because I really think if you teach somebody enough where they really start to really love the instrument and love music, and it's oh man, I can't go without playing the guitar, well, that's game over right there, you know. I mean, I could post the most complex, crazy lessons in the world, and nobody would watch them, you know. I mean, it's really all about trying to figure it out, because if you're on that level where you're picking out your own stuff and you're working your own arrangements for stuff, do that. Do that, you know. I make up my own arrangements of a lot of stuff when I'm playing out solo. I guess that's an advanced skill, you know. You go, okay, well, hey, I want to include that melody here, and how's that going to work with the bass note, and what else is going on in the tune, whatever it happens to be. I don't understand advanced guitar lessons. You should go and just, you know, go grab the piece and work on it. And I say that there's a lot to be said one-on-one for advanced guitar lessons, because you know, two guys who know what they're doing really well, sometimes you can just say the right thing and the other person's like, oh yes, you know, there are these moments of enlightenment when you're dealing with more advanced kind of concepts, but as far as it can, you know, distilling that into a YouTube lesson, you should just go, you take a guitar lesson from Tommy Emmanuel in a master class or something. You know, I don't think I'm here to. I'll get you the basics is kind of my bent, because otherwise I'll be spending 7 hours to pick out one tune by ear to post a tab that nobody's going to watch. So rather than do that, I'm all about, let's pick out these 4 chords and show you a whole bunch of different options of things that you can say with those 4 chords that you've been playing forever, and then from that bent, that idea, you know, you'll get to that level if you keep on playing a little bit every day. That's for sure. And I know some people are fascinated by the finger style idea, and really what the finger style idea, especially with classical guitar, really we were talking about picking out things by ear, by using the bass notes, whatever they happen to be, and then working melodies, working the higher strings, right? And if you're writing stuff, you know, it really kind of turns things into almost like a classical 2-part kind of an idea, where you may have a melody and you may want to add a bass note, and then you may want to add another bass note. You know, you might want to make up another melody. So it really, it doesn't, it sounds beautiful and it sounds really complex sometimes, but a good 2-part gets you a long way, man. You know, and you can kind of make up stuff in the scale if you're familiar with the major scales, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. That's what I'm kind of messing around with right this second. But yeah, so. So it might be kind of cool even to kind of take a little bass line. You know, and kind of, you can always make it something more complex. You know, I'm thinking a G to a D with an F sharp in the bass, E minor, and then kind of a C D progression, and then all of a sudden it sounds like something really complex because I'm doing individual notes, right? That trying to be the bass player in one scenario, right? And then I'm kind of taking notes that might be vocal melodies or instrument melodies and kind of putting those together. And there's all kinds of ways to work that idea. You know, I'm just taking one progression. You could work that into all kinds of other ideas, but what's coming out at this moment. But anyway, but this is just a little piece of my video journal for this week. Got to get to working on some requests now, but thanks for watching, and best of luck to all of you guys watching my YouTube channels. Really appreciate the love, you guys. So best of luck.